All right, everybody, welcome. I have noon on my clock, and so we're going to get going. So, welcome if you're a new viewer to the Share My Screen series. This is our first session of 2025, and we're so glad you're here. If you're a past viewer and have been with us in the past, we do really also appreciate your continued support. My name is Katrina Boylan. I am the senior research writer at the Center for Injury Research, Translation, and Communication, also known as CERTC. Today, we'll also probably hear from at the end Tracy Mian, who's the Director of Research, Translation, and Communication. She'll also be moderating for us today. So if you've got questions, comments, anything, feel free to put those in the chat. As we've done in the past, I'll do about 15 to 20 minutes of demonstrations, and then we'll do some discussion and Q&A. So again, if you've got comments, questions, or anything, put those in the chat and we'll get to those at the end. All right, now before I get into the demonstrations, I wanted to talk a little bit about our topic today, which is artificial intelligence, image generation, and editing. Now, we are in public health and child safety constantly looking for images that back up not only trying to reach the audience we're trying to reach, but also are backing up the messaging we're trying to do. And so on a lot of safety campaigns, this imagery just doesn't, it's just not there. There's no stock photos of this kind of thing. And so we are then left trying to figure out how do we create these images. So we will, this is my first comment is that we will also only reach for AI if we can't find it somewhere or we can't build it ourselves. We're very mindful of the fact that, these are people's livelihoods in many cases, content creators, photographers, and people like that. And so we don't want to just reach for AI if there's already a product out there that we can use or build from existing, if it's images, icons, or things like that. And so we do really think about how we use AI and when we use it. You'll see I don't just kind of go hog wild on AI. There are certain things that it's clear it can do right now. And then there are times when it's clear it's just not going to get me the type of imagery I'm looking for. So I try to be really judicious in how we use AI. We're not just out there mindlessly generating things to see what it can do. We're mindful of the environmental impact. We're mindful of the impact on, again, the creator economy and things like that. And so we will only use these tools when we're kind of all out of other options. And building on that, I will also say these are just two tools. I'm going to cover Canva and ChatGPT today. There are tons and tons of other AI image generators out there. These are just the ones that we have access to and the ones that we use. Now, just a note about our ChatGPT, I do have access to a closed institutional model. My employer offers us a closed model. So I am not using kind of the public facing model for ChatGPT, but my understanding is that for image generation, we should be getting about the same result, depending on the version of ChatGPT you're going to use. And then finally, my last note before we get into the demos is that as I'm going to show you, the language that you're using, the prompts that you're using to create these images really will change the images that you get. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to jump right in. And so I'm going to share my screen here and we're going to get going. So the first thing that I'm going to cover today is the Canva AI image generation. And so there's kind of two areas in Canva that you can do this. One is called DreamLab, which if you're, kind of in this home area over here to the left, it's right here at the bottom where it says DreamLab. The other place in Canva that you can actually create images, I'll just show it to you right here, is if you're in a design, you're in your editing of your design, if you scroll down and you've got MagicMedia, this is also one where if you're in the design, you can put your prompts into that box and, again, graphics, videos, whatever you're looking to create, you can do it right there in your design. So kind of two ways to get to the image generation in Canva. I will say they did used to not generate the same things. And so I was finding DreamLab to be more successful than this MagicMedia, but I think they've actually combined them now. So you get the same thing out of the MagicMedia that you do the DreamLab. But I'm going to show you DreamLab because this is where I tend to start. If I'm just looking for photos, if I don't have a design in mind or in progress, this is where I'll start. And so as you can see, We're going to just start. This is the oldest DreamLab generation that I started with. And so as you can see at the bottom here, we were working on fireplace safety. And I don't know about you, finding images of fireplaces that are appropriately kind of fenced off and gated off, and made safer for kids, it's really hard to find those images. So I went over to DreamLab, and I'll show you in a little bit what ChatGPT did on this. But this is what DreamLab did for the fireplace. Now I will note this is not the most compelling image, but it's also not clearly wrong. And so it got pretty darn close. Now, again, I didn't keep going on this because it wasn't quite what we were looking for. But I will say this is a decent image and one that you might be able to use. Just kind of moving up here, we're doing some work on button batteries. And again, I'll show you some other button batteries examples. But this to me was a great example of how the language that you're using can really change the output that you're getting on these images. So I'll just note right here. So I used what more natural language, more casual language. I called them button batteries. And so as you can see, we did not get the types of batteries that I'm talking about, which are these coin lithium batteries, right? This one did definitely crack me up. It's a bunch of buttons with batteries in a drawer. So obviously not working for us. But you can see that when I put in coin lithium, like this one, I actually got something that was pretty darn close. And so I'll show you in a little bit how you can also pull these into Canva and then clean up these images and edit them to make them into something useful. But again, pretty darn close for AI image generation. Okay, here is another good example of one that we find a lot. And so this is kids in high chairs. And what I wanted to show about this was one I was just playing around with, a couple of months ago, was very often if there is imagery out there, it's often in maybe a high income home, a middle income home. Sometimes these photo shoots are done in stock homes or like model homes. I'm sorry. And so they're spotless, they're just not environments that people kind of recognize as realistic environments. And so one thing that we also find is useful with AI is that you can indicate kind of the environment around it. And so I asked for a child in a high chair with the safety shoulder straps on in a low income kitchen. And again, I think it did a pretty decent job. Some of these aren't going to work. There are no chest clips, for instance, on high chairs, as far as I know. I have a feeling a lot of the imagery was pulled from car seats, right? It's a very similar strap mechanism. But again, this one is maybe not quite right, but adorable kiddo. Kitchen, looks maybe a little more realistic. And then this one, again, the straps might be a little strong for what you see on a high chair, but overall, I think this is a usable image. And again, cutest little kiddo there, and in an environment that might look more familiar to different segments of the population. Let's take a look at stair gates, because again, this is an area where we just do not have imagery that we can use in many cases. It's so specific about which gate and how to install it and things like that. And so I just tried stairs with a child safety gate at the top. Obviously, it didn't even get close. So I tried one more child safety gate at the top of stairs just to see if I could at least get it to the top of the stairs. And I couldn't. So I decided, I don't need this image right now. I'm just going to stop and wait, till we need this image and then work on it then. Okay. Another example. If you've been with us before on previous Share My Screen series, or you've heard Tracy talk, you might recognize lawnmower safety as one of our biggest topics for imagery. If you take a look out there, the stock photos of people mowing the lawn tend to be very, very limited into who is mowing the lawn and the types of lawns they're mowing. And so in order to kind of expand the options for this category, we try artificial intelligence. So as you can see, these are not usable photos, but what I wanted to point out here is how the change in the language actually got me a little closer, even if it's not usable. So here I just put teen girl mowing lawn, and we got this a lot. This is actually not a bad photo. It's just she's not wearing any of the safety gear that we look for when we use a photo of a teenager mowing the lawn. And so I went in and added teen girl wearing long pants, safety glasses, and ear protection mowing the lawn. So as you can see, it got the safety actions correct. It's just that the rest of these photos are pretty darn bananas and just absolutely unusable. However, I wanted to show real quick what you can do if you do want to use one of these photos. It's super easy. You just click on edit here and it will open it up in a new design, which is really, really handy. The other nice thing is that anything that you open up from DreamLab or from Magic Media will show up in your uploads. So there it is. And these are some other ones that I'm going to show. So they'll be right there. And also the title of the title of the image is the prompt you put in. So this one, I don't know if you can see child in high chair with safety straps, like that's the title of the image. So you can see what prompt did I use to get this image. Okay, so let me show you really quick how I've done some editing on some of these, and then I'm gonna flip over and show a couple more examples. But again, we've got our super cute kiddo here. And so what I wanted to show is that it doesn't always also need to be the full photo. I actually think this is a great one to use your background remover. Oh, and I should also note, we've got the Canva Pro account. I think I've noted that in past sessions. You can get it for free if you're like an educator or a nonprofit. Otherwise, it's not an expensive tool, and I think it's actually really worth the money. But these are tools available on the Pro account. Okay, so you can remove the background on this one and then, make a cute little slide, if you wanted to, something like that. But that's one way to use it. Or let me show you super quickly how I edited this into what I used for the promo for the Share My Screen series. So again, this is an AI generated image, but I've got an extra the here. So all I did was I went to my edit, and then I used my magic eraser. Now I like to reduce the brush size on the magic eraser just to get it a little more pinpointed, a little more precise. And then you just come in and highlight the section you want to erase and hit erase. Oop, and it left a little blob here, so we'll erase that too. And there it is. I've got, the is gone. Now for this one, I ended up removing the background because the background wasn't really workable for me. But if you probably don't remember, there was a little shadow on the edge of this laptop that gave it just some more dimension. So I went back in and I gave it a drop shadow. So that's how I created the element that I then used for this promo graphic. Okay, so now, hang on, I'm gonna switch over to a different window. I use different windows for different tasks. So now I'm over in Firefox, and we use different Canva teams for different projects. If you have different projects in Canva, I highly recommend setting up different teams within Canva. Because then you can just keep your brand identity, your image generations, those things, they just stay a little separate. So we've got different teams. And so this is just another one of our teams. So as you can see, we still were working on things like button batteries and not getting that far with these. These were just done recently, yesterday, it looks like, or maybe a couple of days ago. But what I wanted to show about this one was, well, first of all, we're going to go down and look at some of the button batteries because I do think that they were useful, but I wanted to show how it isn't getting certain concepts right. So again, we're talking about button batteries being stored safely. And so that's up and out of reach of children, preferably in some type of locked container. So if I just asked it for button batteries being stored safely, it didn't know what safely meant. And so this is what I mean about the preciseness of the language. Identifying what is safe for storage is going to produce a better result. So you can see that up here. Coin lithium batteries in a package being stored in a locked drawer in a desk in a modest living room. And I actually got a photo that if I pulled this into Canva, I could probably take out, some of this extra text right here and have a pretty workable photo, to be perfectly honest. So I was really impressed to see what DreamLab could come up with for some of these button battery photos. We also, I just want to show, you can do it in different styles. And I'm going to show you how I used this one here. So if you'll see here, this is the same thing for button batteries. I asked it for a different style. I asked it for a basic line drawing style because I was using this in an image that had a lot of icons and things that were like the line drawing. And so I was able to create this image. But if you can see, lithium is on here twice, and that's not quite what I wanted. So I'll pop over and show you real quick something that you might need to play around with a little bit. So in order to edit this photo, go back to your edit. And I just want to show you, I used the magic eraser in the example I showed you previously, but I used the magic eraser on this image. I did the same thing. I highlighted it and hit erase. And this is what it changed into. That's not going to work for us. It doesn't look good. Now, I could do the old school method of putting a little box over that and color matching it, or you can use the text tool. And let me show that right now of how I went in and used grab text to edit this. So you can click on it. You're going to grab that text. Takes just a second. And now I've got something that is editable, as you can see. So I can take out the extra lithium. I can take out that extra I and batteries. And now I can just, make it whatever I want it to be. Super easy, super simple. And now I've got something that I can use for my graphic. Now, I do want to flip back over because we had a viewer reach out to us a couple of weeks ago and ask about a situation where she was trying to do outreach on a product that was unsafe. And so there's a product out there that is, it's an adjustable, like sleeping bassinet or cot, it's sometimes called, and it adjusts to an incline. And it's being marketed as reducing acid reflux and, just being a healthier sleeping environment for your baby, which we know is not true. And so this person wanted to do some outreach, but all of the imagery for this product is the image of the product itself. And so this is something we run into as well. What do you do when you don't have a photo that you can use? And so I wanted to give it a shot here in DreamLab, and then we're going to flip over and I'm going to show you what ChatGPT looked like. So I'll just show you right now. I tried some language here of the different types of language that I saw being used to describe the situation of these sleeping cots. And this just is not at all what I'm looking for. So I stopped here. And now we're going to go over to ChatGPT because, again, this was a limitation of DreamLab. I just wasn't getting what I was looking for. So I was curious to see, what do we do in DreamLab? Or I'm sorry, in ChatGPT. And so now we're over in ChatGPT, and I do have some quick examples that I'm going to skip for the moment for time's sake of how ChatGPT handled fireplace safety. I mean, real quickly, I can show you that in some cases it got close, to an image that we could use, but that's a super high income home. That fence is a little tall. There's just some things on here that aren't helpful for ChatGPT's image generation capacities at that point. And so I'll point out to say, this says made with the old version of image generation, new images coming soon. ChatGPT did recently update its image generation, and it is honestly pretty darn good. This is the one that I did recently, just a couple of days ago, to see what would it do with that same prompt now. And so here's the image of, again, a gas fireplace with glass doors, which you can see the doors, surrounded by a child safety fence in a cozy and modest living room. Pretty darn good image, in my opinion. Okay, let me though go over and show what we're doing with the inclined sleeper. So again, this is something that we run into where there's a product out there that we can't use the imagery. Commercial images are copyrighted. And so there's some legality issues with, first of all, using a copyrighted image to generate an image, or using that copyrighted image for things like outreach. I believe, if I recall correctly, the person who asked is in the UK. And so laws might be different there as well. But here in the US, copyrighted images might be usable at times for certain purposes. But I highly recommend that you understand what photo licenses, image licenses mean. If you are not familiar with that information, we actually have a video over on the CERTSI YouTube channel that walks through copyright, Creative Commons, and public domain, which are kind of the big three of the licenses that might cover images. So, because we don't want to use copyrighted images, we can try to go to places like ChatGPT or Canva to generate these images. So, let's just take a quick look here to see what it did with this concept of this inclined sleeper. So you can see my first prompt here didn't do that well. It wasn't something that, first of all, it didn't show any difference between the two. It got the idea right, but it wasn't quite right. So then I asked it to remove the baby, and this is actually one benefit of ChatGPT over DreamLab is that you can build on those previous images. You don't have to start from scratch. You can say, take that image and then change it. In this case, I think it changed it a little too far, right? We're going even farther away from my product. And so I stopped there. And so here's where I tried a different tactic. And this is where I'm saying I am doing this for demonstration only. What I did was I tried to see what could ChatGPT do if it was being trained on an image of the actual product. Now, again, this is a copyrighted image we're using, and I'm not using this in any place. We do not do this. If it's a copyrighted image, we're very, very, very aware of that, and we do not use those even to create these derivatives because technically it is a violation of copyright. So again, I'm doing this for demonstration only, just to show what's possible. But so I took one of these images of this inclined sleeper, you can see it up here, and asked it to recreate the image without the woman or the baby in it. It got close, but again, it's not quite what we need for that demonstration aspect. So I asked it to use the same image and make the bassinet part more inclined. It got the inclined right, but again, we're going farther away from what that product really looks like. So I decided to try a different tactic a couple of days ago because ChatGPT just upgraded its imagery. And so let me show you super quick what we got to with the new version of ChatGPT. So again, I started out with just a prompt, an illustrated image of a rectangle sleeping cot that shows it to an inclined position. That's correct. It's just not quite what we're looking for. Asked it to make it realistic. I don't know why this image cracks me up so much. That looks like a cozy little doll bed or something, but still not what we're looking for. So I asked it, please remove the baby and make the cot out of metal and mesh because that's closer to the imagery that I was finding online. And so once again, we're a step closer. I asked it to make it a little steeper, so we got a little steeper, but you can see the difference in the quality of these images from iteration to iteration is just a lot higher than it was even a few days ago under ChatGPT. And so here we go. Just based on prompts, I got something that could possibly be workable, especially if you annotated it a little bit about like, the angle here or something, you could possibly use this. One more example before we cut to the question and discussion part, but I want to show real quick. I did actually get it to be a lot closer using a different image that I found online. Again, this is again a copyrighted. This is a commercial image, and so we personally are not going to use this. This is just for demonstration. But I asked it, create a version of this that is photorealistic and does not have text. Honestly, it did a pretty darn good job. So the next thing I asked it though was to add a top rail to this part of the bassinet because that's what it's missing. And here's where we ended up. And I will say that looks pretty darn close to the imagery that I was seeing of the actual products of this. Now, again, we ourselves, we're not necessarily comfortable using these types of images based on where they came from, but I just wanted to show you what's possible here. So if you do have access to these products, for instance, if you're purchasing one of these products and you take a photo yourself, you can then put that into ChatGPT and ask it to help, kind of stylize it or clean it up in a way or make it look, a little bit different. That's perfectly okay. But taking the commercial images, those copyrighted images, and doing this again, it's just legally very questionable and something that I would encourage you to investigate and find out if there's any policies are covered by things like that. All right. So I know that was a ton of information, and I'm going to stop right here. And we're going to see, are there any questions? Do we have comments? Okay. Looks like okay. Can you generate endless number of times on Canva? It looks like it costs a credit even time. Yes. So Canva gives you 500 credits a month for this, which we have never even come close, honestly, to touching our 500. I think that's again the pro account. I think you even get maybe like 10 a month or something on the free account. I know you do at least get some. I'm just not sure on the number. So there is a limit, but honestly, I mean, to me, it was very clear whether DreamLab was going to get close to something or not. And so if it doesn't even kind of get close from the start, I'm not going to waste my credits on it. But again, we haven't even come close to stressing our 500 credits. It's a decent amount of generation. So, and then, oh, I did also want to mention the fact that we acknowledge that some of these things are not. Um, you know, it's not always there's some errors on them, I guess, they're not always perfect, right? So the example that I used for the Share My Screen series, the little laptop that was created, if you look closely, it's a little wonky, it's not perfect around the edges. And so that's also something that's going to be up to you. I liked the style of it. It looked original, which was something that I was really looking for. Nobody else was going to have it. And so I decided to, I guess, ignore the little imperfections around the edges. But of course, that's going to be up for you as well. I used it for the Share My Screen series because, it's our webinar. It's not, kind of an official product in some ways. It's not being printed. And so just really keep an eye on anything that you are generating, especially if you're using it for like a publication, for print, or those kinds of things. Just those little kind of details might look a little wonky from time to time. And so it could be, you need to go ahead and generate something else or, get in and clean it up somehow. So, oh, sorry. One other thing about this. AI generated images are not protectable, not copyrightable. So for instance, that generate the visual that I used for the Share My Screen series, I can't actually go copyright that because it was generated with AI. And in theory, someone with the same prompts could come in and generate virtually the same thing. It probably wouldn't be exactly the same, but it would be, very similar if they're using, similar types of prompts. So those are just a couple of notes that we also think about with AI image generation. And so, as you can see, it's not perfect, but it's gotten a lot farther than it used to. Okay. Um, Credit. So, no, you do not actually have to give credit because it's not copyrightable. The only time that you need to give credit is if somebody else owns some part of that image or has some ownership of it. And again, I cover all of that in the copyright and Creative Commons video over on Certsy. I think Tracy might have put a link to that in there. And so if you're really unsure about photo licenses and image licenses and how those work, please do go watch that. It'll walk through everything. We also have a video on attribution, which I know for public health professionals might seem a little odd, but attribution for photos is a little bit different than attribution for text citations. And so we have a video over on Certsy on attribution as well. And then, okay, does law require that you say in a published piece whether it was so? I think law does not require that now. And I will just tell you, so full disclosure, I am a lawyer by education. I have a law degree. I am admitted to practice in the state of Ohio, although I am inactive. And so I will say the law on this is not exactly settled yet either in all places. And so I think they're still trying to figure out in some cases how AI fits in with the concept of ownership and creation. Because who owns the image if it was created by a computer system? Does OpenAI, who owns ChatGPT, do they own it? Do I own it because I put the prompts in? Does the model or does the imagery the model was trained on? Where do all of these things come in? And so I think personally, best practice is we usually will disclose when we have created images with AI, but sometimes I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to. Like that fireplace example, I don't know that if I'm saying, put a gate around your fireplace that I need to disclose that that's generated with AI. But I think there are times and places where, especially if there's photos of people, I think it's just a good idea to say I did use AI using this. Okay. And then we are a charity organization. Would ChatGPT or Canva be free to use? So I think if I correct, you might be in the UK as well. And so check on that. Canva is an Australian company though, and I know that the nonprofit like we have a free nonprofit account, and so check to see how that works where you are. But if you look for the Canva nonprofit license, it should walk you through, depending on where you are in the world, what you would need to apply for that and get the free Canva. ChatGPT, there is a free version of it. I am not sure, I'll be honest, what version they're on. It tends to be the free version, is maybe a couple of versions behind, but there are free versions out there, and so it might be worth signing up for that and finding out what you can generate in there. Again, we have an institutional model, which is fabulous, and I get that not everybody has access to that. So just want to make sure that I'm really clear about what we're using ChatGPT for and the fact that we do have that closed model. So
let me pipe in there, Katrina. If you do have the free model, I put this in the chat, but if you have the free model, it is not a closed system, which means anything that you put into it can, in theory, will be used to train and can, in theory, get put out. So do not put anything that is proprietary, patient data, anything like that. You have to be a lot more careful with the free versions, and it is not as good. The paid version is better. You can get it for $20 a month, so not huge cost, but still a cost. But yeah, just be careful with that.
I think about how much stock photos and stuff are normally a couple bucks, right? So it's like if it's maybe you're going to buy it, if you know what all the photos you need for a month, maybe you buy it for a month and generate all your stuff, and then maybe you can turn it back off again. Because I know we're all trying to cut costs right now too. So,
and one more thing with Canva before we close. DreamLab and MagicMedia are actually run on two different AI systems. DreamLab is based on Leonardo AI, and MagicMedia is based on Stable Diffusion technology. So they may actually have slightly different versions, and they do use different credits, if I understand that correctly. So
I think you get off this. I thought it was the same credit.
I'm not sure on that part.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, actually. Either way, you get 500, and I think we've not come close to that because we're not even come close to doing the 500. And actually, that's a good point, Tracy, because previously I was seeing really different results with MagicMedia and DreamLab. I guess I thought maybe there was some overlap now because I'm actually seeing almost the same stuff out of them. And I noticed that the thing that I generated in MagicMedia actually showed up in my DreamLab history as well. So I don't know how Canva's playing, I don't know how they're working, but I get that they are based on different things. And so you actually might get different images based on what you're using. So okay, well, we're a little past time, so I'm going to wrap up here. If there's no other questions or anything, again, feel free to go check out all those other resources on our YouTube channel. We are also looking for more topics for the future, for more Share My Screen. So if there's a topic that you'd like to see cover, if you've got a question that you'd like us to answer, shoot us that at info@cartc.org. And we'll be happy to check that out and see what we can do. So all right. Well, thank you so much for attending. We're going to wrap up here and enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Thank you.
Looking for more HealthCom content? Check out all of our trainings and resources at cirtc.org.